If you have problems with a tight piriformis like sciatica or low back pain or just pain in this area of your pelvis and hips in general, and you've tried the traditional things like stretching or rolling it out without much success, this video is going to show you the root cause of those issues and what you can do to fix it. To understand what's going on within sciatica or piriformis related issues, we have to appreciate the anatomy of the piriformis muscle because then we can understand the true root cause. So the piriformis attaches on this bone right here, the sacrum, and runs down and attaches on the leg bone or the femur itself. Now, when this muscle gets pulled into a shortened or tight position, these attachment sites get pulled closer to each other. What that does is closes off the space between this bone and this bone right here, the leg. So basically the pelvis and the leg. This space approximates and gets closer together, which means that we have compression or tightness on the backside of our pelvis. And we have our sciatic nerve, which runs down through this area. And that is going to be compressed and tension is going to be on that area because we have this muscle pinching it and pulling these things closer together, which is putting constant tension on that nerve, which relates to a lot of the low back pain symptoms, piriformis related symptoms, sciatica, etc. Now, it's also important to appreciate that the sciatic nerve runs down through the low back vertebrae right here. And so if this low back is in a position where it's compressed like this, that is also putting tension on the sciatic nerve. So you could have a problem here with the sciatic nerve, but also down here with your piriformis compressing that sciatic nerve. But at a certain point, if the pelvis goes more and more forward, the body recognizes that. It's like, whoa, I'm really leaning forward here. So in order to literally not fall forward, stuff on the backside of the pelvis starts to get tight and the body starts gripping this area to help pull the pelvis back. And that helps us not fall forward within our center of gravity, but it comes at the cost of this area constantly being under tension. And that, as you can imagine, might put pressure on that sciatic nerve constantly. These people typically, when they stand up and they tune into their body, their glutes are kind of always tight, but they might not realize it. So it might be something for you to just kind of listen to your body and check in with yourself throughout the day from hour to hour. See, if you stand up, are your glutes constantly always tight or are they tense to some degree? You might be dealing with some of this issue if so. And even if you don't have a lot of compression of your low back, it is pretty common for people that have a tight piriformis and compression down here to have a center of gravity that is pushed forward in space to some extent. And I'm sure you can see how that would happen. So now let's go back to the pelvis to understand what we need to do specifically there, because hopefully you're picking up from this demonstration and explanation that we do need to shift the body's center of gravity back so that way we can restore a better position of the low back and pelvis neutrality overall. So what we need to do in most cases is two things. First is bring the body's center of gravity back underneath it, particularly at the pelvis, because for many people it's too far forward. Then what we need to do is decompress the backside of the pelvis and open up more space for us to access internal rotation to take stress off of a tight piriformis. So here are two exercises that you can do, and I would do these in sequence, the first one first, the second one second, and you can individualize these as I will discuss based on your own individual mobility limitations and how comfortable your body is through the exercise. Now, a common question I get is, well, why is the body's center of gravity forward in the first place? Why are we in this position? Why do so many people default to a position of anterior pelvic tilt? I talk about it a lot in my videos, and commonly the reason is that it's either a problem with our breathing, meaning that our rib cage doesn't move as it normally should, and so we're using our neck to help pull our rib cage up for us, and so that could be driving the show, or it could be a specific hip mobility limitation, and so we're pushing our pelvis forward to help us access something at our hips that we can't get in more of a neutral pelvis position, or it could be both. My best resource for addressing both of these things is my beginner body restoration program. It's designed for anyone to be able to do, as the name suggests, and doesn't require much equipment or time per day. And it addresses a lot of the common issues we see within mobility, posture, movement limitations. So if you want to learn more, check it out down below in the description. It actually just got a brand new update and revamp as of this week. So now is a great time to get the new program. For this first one, we're going to work on bringing our pelvis underneath us more to help improve our center of gravity and the ability for us to stack our head over our rib cage, over our pelvis. So we're going to get in this position where we have our feet up on a bench or a chair. We have a 90-degree angle at both our knees and our hips, or a right angle at both. We have a foam roller or some sort of compressible object deep in our groin here. We don't want it in between the knees, we want it deeper in our groin. And that should allow our knees to stay in line with our feet and also our hips. Now we're gonna tilt our chin back so that way it's passively pointed at the ceiling. And now here's the key. Now, you may have seen this exercise before, but we're gonna do it very slightly differently for the purposes of this video to help open up the backside of the pelvis as we bring the pelvis back underneath us. So what we're gonna do is first make sure our whole body's relaxed, there's no tension, and our low back is flat and relaxed on the ground. First, I'm gonna have you ever so slightly squeeze that object. You want to make sure that this object is as low as it goes in your groin. Give it a little squeeze, literally just a 2 out of 10, no more than that. Do not do it more than that, because if you do, you're going to engage other stuff we don't want. And then you're going to make sure that your toes are also pointed up at the ceiling, and you're going to very gently dig down, maintaining that 2 out of 10 squeeze. If you do it right, you're going to feel your inner hamstring muscles on both sides engage about a 4 out of 10. That's all you're looking for here. You don't want any more than that. Your low back's gonna stay relatively flat on the ground, but your tailbone's gonna come off of the ground. So to recap, it's just a little slight squeeze, 2 out of 10, and then you're going to pull down on that bench or chair and lift up just a little bit like this. Notice how my low back is still flat, but my tailbone is off of the ground. I'm going to sit here now and do a specific breathing pattern. You're going to gently exhale through your mouth with an open mouth and relaxed jaw for about 5 to 10 seconds. Then you're gonna pause, close your mouth, and very gently inhale through your nose for about 3 to 5 seconds. You're just going to do this for about 2 sets of 8 to 10 slow breath cycles. You're holding this top position for an isometric contraction or hold. Now, it may be surprising for some of you to hear that we're about to do a hinge or deadlift variation with our body weight. The reason is that a hinge is really good at opening up the backside of the pelvis, as you'll feel if you do it properly. So the setup is key, but if you do it right, you're gonna feel a good amount of stretch in the backside of the hip, and you're gonna feel a lot of your glute working, but in a nice, good, functional way. So what you wanna do is find a rack or a door frame or something you can just gently grasp and wrap your fingers around, and it needs to be just ever so slightly in front of you. You don't want it to be too far forward like this or next to your side like this. I would say just maybe 6 inches in front of your lead foot here, and you're gently grasping it with the same side of the forward leg right here. Now, this back leg, you're gonna be on your toes like this. Your heel is up, but the ball of your foot's on the ground. You wanna make sure that if you were to bend your knees a little bit, there would be a pretty straight line from this hip all the way down through this knee right here. Now, this front leg is bearing 90% of our body weight. We're gonna have the foot contacts of the weight that's on this foot. 50 to 60% of the weight's in the heel. The other 40 to 50% is between the base of the big toe and the little toe right here. So, for most people, it's more of a narrow stance than they originally would anticipate or think, but this is gonna allow us to really get heavy on this leg. So again, 90% of my weight's here, 10% of my weight's back here. So we wanna start from a neutral position. So first, bend both knees slightly, just 15%. Back knee a little bit more than the front knee. Now, you wanna imagine your pelvis is a bowl of water. You don't want it spilling out the front too much. You don't want the water spilling out the back too much. You want it parallel with the ground. So a way that you can make sure that you're in a good position is get tall, exhale, to feel your low rib cage come down. Now, you wanna do that without slouching, obviously. But if you do that right, you're gonna be tall, eyes straight ahead, 90% of your weight is on this front foot right here. You're gently grasping here. Now here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna very gently turn my zipper line towards my big toe, just a little bit, just 10%. And I'm going to push my hips back, staying extremely heavy on those 3 foot contacts right here, stopping at the point where I start to feel a little stretch in the back of my hip on this lead leg side, my left side. Once I feel that stretch, I'm just gonna stop right there. And then I'm going to push through the ground, through those contact points in my foot, and I'm gonna stand up, making sure that my knee is in the exact same amount of knee bend, relatively speaking, throughout this entire process, even when I stand up. And then I'm gonna go back down again. I'm gonna make sure I'm getting heavy on that foot, and I'm pushing my hips back, stopping at the point where I feel a little stretch right here. Okay, now I'm gonna push through the ground and I'm gonna stand up. If I do it right, you're gonna feel that stretch in the bottom. You're gonna feel a ton of your glute working on that lead leg, even with the support, even with just your body weight. The two most common mistakes to avoid. First is that people are gonna have this back leg too straight as they go down, and they're gonna load their back leg too much like this. That's not what you wanna see. This leg, ball of the foot, is on the ground, heels up. It's really not doing much of anything other than being a kickstand. The other thing is that people will either bend their knee too much on the front leg as they go down, or they're gonna straighten out too much at some point. So just keep the same amount of knee bend and just imagine that you are pushing your hips back and lowering your torso to the ground, maintaining that neutral spine. Feel that stretch, and then come up. The last thing that may be helpful for you to visualize is making this glute as big as possible on the way down. So what that might look like from a back view is I'm kind of pushing my hip back, trying to make this glute big as I go down. Then as I come up, I can square up again. I'll give you guys a front view to see what this looks like. So I'm gonna bend both knees very slightly, very slight pelvis turn to that side, just a little bit, and then going down until you feel that slight stretch right here. Good. Push through the ground, coming up, and just stay within your active range of motion. Don't go beyond it. It's not worth it. Just go to the point where you feel a little stretch and then come up from there. And you can progressively work down over time, but if you rush this, you will not get the benefits from it. Now, if that standing exercise didn't feel right, or if it was too hard, then you can get in this position as a regression and still open up space on the back side of your pelvis on the bottom side that you'll be doing here. So you want to have your hips and knees bent at a 90-degree angle or around that, maybe slightly less than that if it's more comfortable. But you want to have your feet generally stacked on top of each other to some extent, and that foam roller is in between your knees. Now, you have your head supported by a pillow, so that way you have no tension in your body whatsoever. All you're going to do is very gently push your top knee ahead of your bottom knee, moving only through your hips, stopping at the point where if you went any further, you would have to arch your back or move your low back significantly, or more than your knee would be moving. And then at that end range, once your knee is ahead of the bottom knee, you're gonna very gently push up with your bottom knee into that roller. 1 out of 10, literally not more than that. More than that will kick on stuff we don't want. You're gonna feel your inner thigh engage on that bottom side right there. You're gonna hold that, and you're gonna relax everything, and then you're gonna shift that top knee behind your bottom knee. And you're gonna stop once you get maybe 2 or so inches behind right here. So that way that top knee is 2 inches behind that bottom knee. And then you're gonna go forward again. And you're gonna get to the point where if you went any further from here, you're gonna feel that same thing where your low back would move too much, or it would just be more low back than hip or knee movement. And then you're gonna push up into that roller very slightly again, 1 out of 10, and you're gonna hold this for just about 3 to 5 seconds, relax, and then go back again. I'd recommend doing the first exercise for about 2 sets of 8 to 10 breath cycles. The standing one, I'd recommend doing 2 to 3 sets of about 10 reps. But if you don't do the standing one and you want to do the one on the floor instead, I'd recommend about 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 10 total rolls, meaning the top knee goes forward, you get that little push up with the bottom knee, and then you come back. That's 1 rep or 1 roll. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.